In this course, you'll take the role of the new HR director at a large factory. A recent labor assessment of your factory found that workers were required to take 12-hour shifts and work 10 days in a row. One of your key customers is asking your company what steps you're taking to reduce working hours. Long hours may be common, but that doesn't mean they're good for business. This is true even if workers don't complain and they say they want to work more hours to earn more. Surveys of workers show that workers accept long hours because they feel their basic salary isn't enough. But the surveys also show that working long hours is bad for their private life and their health. Based on these results, what effect would you expect to see from reducing working hours? Let's say you're the new HR manager for a company that operates 2 factories. The first factory pays workers on a time-based system. Workers are paid for the number of hours they work in a day. The second factory pays workers on a piece rate system. These workers are paid for the number of items they produce in a day. Turnover is a problem in both factories, and many workers have said that low wages is the reason for leaving. The general manager has asked you to check the wage calculations for both factories to make sure they meet the legal requirements. Then she wants you to create a plan for improving wage satisfaction. The factory doesn't have a budget for increasing payroll, so your plan has to fit within the current budget. To check the wages, you've decided to go over the wage calculations for workers in each of the 2 factories. First, the time-based system. In the time-based factory, contracts for new workers say that base pay is $180 per month, plus an overtime premium. After workers finish the 1-year probation period, they'll get a raise. The local minimum wage is $200, but workers should earn over a minimum wage through overtime hours. Does this arrangement meet legal requirements? Some employers may have workers go through a probationary period, when they'll get a slightly lower wage. But the probationary wage must be at least the minimum wage before counting overtime. The company is launching a training program for new workers. In their first month, they'll have to show up an hour earlier than usual for training. One of your colleagues suggests that you should pay workers for the extra hour, since the training is mandatory. But another colleague reminds you that training is a benefit that the company provides freely to workers. It doesn't make sense to pay workers on top of the money the company is already spending on training. Who's right? This lesson explains how health and safety management systems work. It will show you how to develop the procedures and records to maintain a safe workplace and demonstrate it to your customers. Let's say you're the health and safety manager in a factory that just had a customer assessment. It found major gaps in the documentation of the factory's health and safety management system and a number of safety issues. The general manager has asked you to review the management system and correct the shortcomings. After doing some research, you find that OHSAS 18001 and ISO 45001 are common standards for health and safety management systems. Both standards are more complex than the systems you currently use to manage quality and human resources. Your manager is concerned that they'll be too expensive. What could you say? Getting certified can help you improve your system, but even a simple management system can make your workplace safer and meet customer requirements. It doesn't need to be any more complex than your quality management system. In fact, some companies integrate both systems and put the same people in charge. The effort you put into your management system pays off. Unmonitored conditions put you at risk of costly accidents, government penalties, customer interventions, and good employees leaving to work in safer companies. Managing safety well builds your reputation with customers, saves you time during assessments, and makes your company a safer place for all employees. A company's health and safety management system is the set of procedures it uses to identify and control hazards. It might look like a binder full of documents, but the procedures in that binder guide the actions of everyone in the company. Policies make health and safety the top priority. Procedures show how to do each job safely and who's responsible for what. Communication and training ensures everyone knows how and why to follow safety procedures. Monitoring finds and fixes unsafe practices and conditions. And documentation puts all your procedures and records in writing so your employees and customers can see how your system works. Let's see what's involved in each of these parts, starting with policy. Let's say you're talking with the general manager about developing a health and safety policy. You'll write a short statement that the company is committed to providing a safe workplace and meeting the requirements of your customers and the law. She asks you how a short policy can make the workplace safer. How could you explain it? Welcome to this lesson on how to make sure your workers will leave your company in no time. The objective of this lesson is to help you understand the positive effects of turnover in your company. Learn different strategies to ensure your workers leave shortly after they've joined. Many companies are trying hard to put in place retention measures. But why go through the hassle? There are many workers out there who would happily work for you. For every worker that leaves, you'll find 3 willing to fill the vacancy. Actually, you should be trying your best to ensure that they'll leave within the first year of joining. To begin with, make sure that your workers get the worst possible start. Definitely don't waste your money on orientation sessions, as they won't stay long anyway. Make sure their supervisors are as brutal as possible. And the best way of getting workers to be productive is to be tough. To scream at them and humiliate them in front of their coworkers helps too. The best way to learn is the hard way. Most workers will miss home after a few months anyway, so don't worry about applying some pressure. It's important to get the most out of them while they're here. Do you agree with what we've said up until now? Yes, I agree. Most workers will leave quickly. Using a bit of pressure will not cause any harm, but it will help to increase production. Not really. I think that workers are more productive the more committed they are to the company. Hello, welcome to the Environmental Management Essentials lesson. This lesson will help you understand the essentials of managing environmental impact and focus your efforts on the areas that matter most to your customers and save money in your factory. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand the expectations from your customers on managing environmental impact. Learn where to focus your efforts in order to meet brand expectations while reducing costs. Learn the 8 key principles for environmental management. There are 4 parts that make up an environmental management system. A policy or strategy that guides decision-making. This is a 1-page statement signed by management that outlines the environmental goals that the company commits itself to. Tracking, measuring, and documenting all significant environmental impacts. For example, recording how much greenhouse gases you emit. Designating accountable personnel and training them on the EMS. So you'll need to appoint some people to be responsible for the EMS and train them. Management review, at least annually, for effectiveness of the system. Having an EMS in place provides some important benefits. When a customer begins evaluating your factory's environmental credentials, having an EMS in place is the first thing they'll look for. First, at the brand level, it demonstrates your factory is taking steps to control its impact and that you have the data to back up your claims. And second, at the factory level, an EMS can save money by helping you to reduce waste, energy, and water in your factory. This lesson will prepare you for a factory assessment. You'll learn how to get ready for the assessment and effectively participate in the site assessment process. Let's suppose you're a general manager at a factory. You've received a request from one of your customers for your factory to undergo a labor assessment. Factory assessments evaluate the conditions in your facility against the Customer-Supplier Code of Conduct and local laws and regulations. Customer codes of conduct cover labor, health and safety, environment, ethics, and management systems. The goal is to ensure that working conditions are safe, that all workers are treated with respect and dignity, and that business operations are environmentally responsible and conducted ethically. Let's say you're preparing for the assessment. You call a meeting with your compliance team. The first step is to gather documents from the customer's list of required documents. Your compliance manager says it could take a week to assemble all the documents. She'll need to work with a few members of the EHS and HR teams and schedule meetings with several key managers. Your HR manager says HR is very busy with ramp-up, and he can't spare anyone from his team. He says that assessment document lists offer suggestions, but you're not expected to have every document on the list. As long as you do everything you can to establish a friendly relationship with the assessors, they can usually overlook a few documents. Which manager's opinion would you go with? This lesson will prepare you to develop a corrective action plan, or CAP, in response to a factory assessment. You'll learn how to identify the root causes of findings and develop corrective actions to address them. Let's suppose you work for a factory that has recently undergone a labor assessment. The assessment found several non-conformances, and your customer has asked you to prepare a corrective action plan to address the findings. A CAP is a formal plan to correct each finding from the assessment. It identifies the root causes of each finding and outlines the corrective actions to be taken to remedy the issue and prevent it from reoccurring. Each action includes a deadline by which it's expected to be completed and a person in charge. Your customer may manage the CAP process themselves or have it managed by an external organization. Here we'll call your contact at the customer or organization the CAP manager. In general, we can divide the CAP process into 6 steps. Receive CAP template, develop CAP, submit CAP, receive CAP approval, monitor CAP implementation, and close findings with evidence. Let's go through these steps one by one. Following the assessment, the assessor or your CAP manager will provide you with a CAP template containing all findings. The CAP template will be filled out with the findings from the assessment. Every finding is given a rating based on severity. Typically, ratings include 0 tolerance, priority, major, minor, and risk of nonconformance. To correct a nonconformance and prevent it from reoccurring, you need to understand why it happened in the first place, the root cause. Then you can identify corrective actions. The corrective actions should include immediate actions that correct the immediate issue and preventive actions that prevent it from reoccurring. First, you'll need to assign owners for each corrective action and set objectives or key performance indicators. Then determine completion dates within a reasonable time frame. As you complete a corrective action or a milestone along the way, you'll need to provide evidence, such as pictures or documentation.